All right, so today we're going deep on Rosie O'Donnell.
Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah, and we're using this really interesting source. It's actually a transcript from another podcast, and that podcast did a whole episode on her.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a deep dive within a deep dive.
Deep dive inception.
Yeah, exactly.
That's quick.
Now, you probably know Rosie as a comedian. Most people do, I think.
Yeah.
But she's done so much more, and this transcript goes into, like, everything, all the different stuff she's done, early stand-up, her talk show, acting, activism. But what I found really interesting was how her childhood experiences really seemed to shape her sense of humor.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of comedians draw on that.
Yeah.
You know, their past experiences kind of inform their comedic sensibilities.
Right. And it's not just her humor, but also her, like, passion for helping others, which is something I'll get into a little bit later.
Yeah.
So maybe we can start by just giving our listeners, like, a quick overview of Rosie's career. Like, just hit the major milestones, you know?
Okay, yeah. Just to give everybody a sense of, like, how much she's actually done.
So, stand-up comedian. She won Star Search. She's been in a bunch of films. She's been a talk show host, a producer. She's written book. I mean, like...
Wow. Yeah, that is a lot.
She's done it all.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, like, what drives a person to do all of that? You know?
Right.
It's like this constant need to create and connect with people in different ways.
Yeah, there's definitely, like, an adaptability there and a drive that's really impressive.
Yeah, I think so, too.
To be able to just shift gears and you know, just tackle new challenges like that.
Totally. And it's not like she's been mildly successful in any of these areas.
Right.
It's like she's excelled at everything she's done. I mean, like you mentioned Star Search, right?
Yeah.
She won that in 1984.
Wow, 1984. That's like a completely different entertainment landscape than what we have now.
Right.
It's pre-internet, pre-social media. I mean, that's...
Like, how did people even become famous back then? Yeah, it's wild to think about. But clearly, she had something special even then, you know,
right,
to break through in that kind of environment.
It's amazing, and it makes you wonder, like, what was it about her that clicked with audiences back then?
I think it was her comedy. Like, it was bold.
Yeah.
It was observational even then, but it was also kind of vulnerable.
Oh, interesting.
You know, she wasn't afraid to poke fun at herself. And I think that self-deprecating humor, coupled with this, like, genuine warmth that she has, really endeared her to people.
Makes sense. Okay, so now I think it's time to touch on Rosie's childhood because, as I mentioned earlier, the transcript goes into it pretty deeply.
Okay.
And it wasn't always easy. She grew up as one of 5 kids.
Wow.
In an Irish Catholic family.
Okay.
And then on top of that, she lost her mother when she was only 10 years old. So that's
really tough.
A lot to deal with at a young age.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of loss at such a formative age, it definitely shapes you. It shapes your worldview. And you can see how it might have influenced her later in life, like her openness about her own mental health struggles.
Right.
Maybe that fostered some empathy in her.
Yeah.
You know, a desire to connect with others who are going through similar things.
It seems very likely, yeah. Okay, so moving on to the 90s, I think it's safe to say that this was like peak Rosie, right? Yeah.
The Rosie decade.
She was everywhere. She was in tons of movies, had her own super successful talk show.
Totally. She was like a household name.
Yeah. She was in A League of Their Own, Sleepless in Seattle, The Flintstones.
Yeah, those are some iconic movies right there.
Right. And of course, The Rosie O'Donnell Show, which we'll definitely talk more about later.
Yeah, I think we have to.
But I kind of want to start with A League of Their Own.
Okay.
Just because I think it had such a huge cultural impact.
It really did, especially for women in sports. I mean, it tackled these complex themes like gender roles, societal expectations, female empowerment, all within the context of this, like, you know, fun sports comedy.
Right.
It challenged stereotypes without being preachy.
Yeah, it wasn't heavy-handed at all. It was just like a really entertaining and heartwarming movie.
Yeah, and it showed the strength and camaraderie of women in a way that, like, hadn't really been seen on screen before.
Yeah, you're so right.
At least not on such a large scale.
It was refreshing. Okay, so we've talked about her early success, her iconic film roles. Now let's talk about The Rosie O'Donnell Show, because that was a phenomenon.
It really was. Like, everyone watched that show.
I know, it was huge.
Yeah.
So what do you think it was about her hosting style that made it so popular?
Well, it was different.
Different.
It was a total departure from, like, the typical daytime talk show format.
Yeah.
You know, it felt more personal, like she was having a conversation with a friend. You weren't just watching a celebrity interview.
Yeah, I get that. It was warm. It was genuine.
Exactly. And she would get personal. She would share her own experiences. and connect with her guests and the audience on a human level.
Right, and that comes through really strongly in this transcript.
Oh, does it?
It talks about how she wasn't afraid to tackle, like, the tough topics, social justice issues, her own struggles with depression and anxiety.
Yeah, and that's huge. Just her willingness to be vulnerable, to let her guard down.
Yeah.
Especially back then, that was kind of revolutionary for daytime TV.
Yeah, totally.
How to destigmatize mental health and like create a space where people felt comfortable talking about their own challenges.
And you have to remember, this was all happening before social media really took off.
Oh, right.
So she was building community and having these meaningful conversations long before terms like influencer and online platform even existed.
Wow. So in a way, she was like a pioneer of that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool.
It makes you wonder if her approach to connecting with people was actually ahead of its time.
Yeah, I think it was, because she really tapped into this fundamental human need for connection, for authenticity, for shared experiences. And she did it in a way that felt genuine and relatable.
Okay, so we've talked about her early success, her iconic film roles, the impact of her talk show. But this transcript also shines a light on another really important aspect of her career, her activism.
Yeah, and I think that's where things get even more interesting.
Yeah.
Because her activism wasn't just something she did on the side. It was like deeply intertwined with her personal experiences and values.
Right, and the causes she's championed, LGBTQ plus rights, children's welfare, mental health awareness, they're all deeply personal to her. And she's never been shy about using her platform to advocate for these issues.
And she doesn't just raise awareness.
Right.
She's actively trying to create change. Like, remember when she was so vocal against don't ask, don't tell in the military?
That was huge. And then, of course, her coming out in 2002, I mean, that was a watershed moment. Not just for her, but for the LGBTQ plus community as a whole.
Absolutely. It's hard to overstate the impact of that.
Yeah.
Here she was, this beloved comedian and talk show host, choosing to live openly and authentically as herself.
Yeah.
And it was 2002.
Yeah, it was a different time.
Hollywood was still very much in the closet back then.
Right.
So her decision to come out on her own terms and to use her platform to advocate for LGBTQ plus rights, I think it really paved the way for countless others to feel comfortable being themselves.
Totally. I mean, you can't underestimate the impact of someone with her level of fame and influence doing that.
It's inspiring to see how she used her fame and influence to make a positive difference,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that commitment to using her platform for good continues to this day.
It does. It really does. She's constantly evolving, taking on new challenges, speaking out on the issues that matter to her.
And her career, it keeps evolving too.
Yeah. Like I said before, it's amazing to see. It's like this constant reinvention. From stand-up to film to television to activism, she's never been afraid to step outside of her comfort zone and try new things.
It's true, and she never seems content to just like rest on her laurels. She's always pushing herself creatively, exploring new ways to connect with audiences, which I think is one of the reasons she's remained relevant for so long.
Definitely. It's not just talent. It's not just charisma. It's that drive, to grow, to learn, to evolve.
Yeah.
And that's something we can all aspire to no matter what field we're in.
I completely agree. And, speaking of the Rosie O'Donnell Show,
yes,
I think it's worth taking a closer look at the cultural impact, because it wasn't just a popular talk show. It was like a phenomenon that redefined daytime television.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So let's dive into that in a little more detail after a quick break. We'll be right back to continue our deep dive into the extraordinary life and career of Rosie O'Donnell.
Sounds good. You know what's really fascinating about the Rosie O'Donnell Show?
What's that?
It's like it came at this time when daytime talk shows were so formulaic.
Yeah, they were kind of all the same.
Right. A lot of them were leading towards controversy or sensationalism. But Rosie's show, it went in a completely different direction.
It was like a breath of fresh air. It was so positive.
Like all those celebrity interviews, it wasn't just promoting their latest project. It felt like real conversations.
I know. It was like they were actually friends, sharing laughs,
Exactly.
Yeah.
It felt intimate and authentic, which was pretty rare for daytime television.
Yeah, and it wasn't just celebrities either. She had regular people on the show.
Oh, right. Like who?
Everyday heroes, people with inspiring stories, families sharing their experiences. It was like a show that celebrated all these different types of people.
Yeah, that inclusivity was definitely part of its appeal.
Yeah.
It made daytime TV more relatable to a wider audience.
Yeah, totally. And thinking back on it now, I'm noticing how much the show focused on family and community.
Yeah.
Like there were all these segments on parenting, adoption, even just heartwarming stories from viewers.
Right. It makes sense, though, because Rosie herself is a mother, and she's spoken openly about her experiences with adoption and parenting.
Yes, she has.
So it was like she created this space for open and honest conversations about family life, which I think was missing from a lot of media back then.
Yeah, and she wasn't afraid to get personal either, like sharing her own joys and struggles as a parent.
Right. And that vulnerability made her so relatable.
Exactly. It challenged this like traditional image of the perfect celebrity. She was human, you know, showing that even people in the spotlight have real life challenges and it's okay to talk about them. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the Rosie O'Donnell show, and I think for good reason.
It was a big deal.
But I think it's worth circling back to her film career for a bit. Because, like, A League of Their Own is a classic.
It's a classic.
And it's still so popular and relevant today.
I know. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's those timeless themes, that powerful message about female empowerment. The film resonated with audiences back in '92, and it still resonates today because it speaks to these universal truths about, like, pursuing your passions, challenging societal expectations, finding strength in sisterhood.
It really does. And I think Rosie's performance as Doris was just so standout.
Oh, yeah, she was great in that.
She brought so much humor and heart to the role.
Yeah, she was this perfect mix of tough and tender. She could make you laugh 1 minute and then bring you to tears the next.
I know. And the chemistry she had with the rest of the cast was fantastic.
Yeah, that whole ensemble cast was amazing. Each of them brought something unique to their roles.
They did. It was this like dynamic and unforgettable team. You know, one thing that always struck me about A League of Their Own is how it handled the historical context of women's baseball during World War II.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it wasn't just a sports comedy. It was a film that shed light on this important and often overlooked chapter in American history.
It gave visibility to those incredible women who, stepped up to keep baseball alive while the men were off fighting in the war. And it challenged this idea that baseball was just a man's game.
Totally. It celebrated the athleticism and the talent and the determination of these female athletes.
Yeah, it was powerful.
So we've talked about her groundbreaking talk show, her iconic film roles, and her commitment to, using her platform for good. What do you think is the most remarkable aspect of Rosie O'Donnell's career? What makes her story so compelling?
I think it's that she's always searching for authenticity.
Yeah.
Like throughout her career, she's never been afraid to just be herself, speak her mind, challenge the status quo. Whether she's making us laugh or sharing her own struggles or advocating for social justice, she always comes across as genuine.
I totally agree. And I think that's why she's been able to connect with audiences across generations.
Yeah.
She's not just a celebrity. She's someone that people feel like they know, someone they can relate to.
And she inspires people to be their best selves.
She does. And that's a powerful legacy to leave behind. It's not just about fame or fortune. It's about using your voice to make a difference, to connect with others, to make the world a better place. Speaking of legacy, I'm curious what the source material says about Rosie's future. Does it sound like she's still working on stuff?
It does. Her career seems to just keep evolving. She's producing, she's writing, she's even directing now.
Oh, wow.
She's still a vocal advocate for LGBTQ plus rights and other social justice causes. And she's even embracing these new mediums like podcasting and online content creation.
Wow. So she's not slowing down at all.
Nope, not at all.
That's incredible. It's inspiring to see her still so passionate about her work and committed to making a difference.
Yeah, it really is. It speaks to her resilience and her belief in the power of storytelling.
Okay, so to sum up what we've learned from this transcript so far, it sounds like Rosie is still going strong, taking on new challenges, and using her platform to do good things.
That's right. Her story is far from over. And that's what makes it so fascinating to follow.
Wow, it really is fascinating, isn't it? Going through this transcript has been quite a journey,
Yeah, it has.
We've covered so much, from her early stand-up days to, her incredible success in movies and on TV, and, of course, all of her amazing advocacy work.
Her career has been like anything but predictable.
Right, it's been all over the place.
Which I think makes it all the more compelling. There's this constant evolution,
Yeah.
pushing boundaries, using her platform to challenge conventions and really inspire change.
And it's amazing because through all of that, she's managed to keep this incredible connection with her audience.
Right. No matter what she's doing.
Yeah, whether she's making us laugh or think or feel something, it's like she taps into something that everyone can relate to.
Totally. And it goes back to what we talked about before, that authenticity.
Right.
People can tell that she's being real,
Yeah.
that her humor comes from a real place, that her passion for her work is real.
It's not an act.
Yeah, and that's powerful.
It is powerful. It really is. It's not just about talent or charisma. It's about being genuine, being vulnerable, being willing to use your voice to actually try to make a difference.
And Rosie has definitely done that.
She has.
Like, she's never been afraid to speak out on issues that are important to her,
Yeah.
even when, it hasn't been popular.
Yeah, she's definitely faced a lot of criticism over the years, especially for being so outspoken about, politics and social issues.
She's gotten a lot of heat for that,
Yeah.
but it hasn't stopped her.
Not at all. She's never let it silence her. She's always stood up for what she believes in, even when it's meant, losing fans or whatever.
It takes a lot of courage to do that, especially when you're in the public eye like that.
It does. And that's a really important takeaway from all of this.
Yeah, what is it?
That it's so important to use your platform for good.
Yeah.
Even when it's hard, even when it's uncomfortable.
Even when people tell you to shut up.
Yeah, exactly. So as we're wrapping up this deep dive into Rosie O'Donnell's life and career, what do you think is, like, the biggest lesson we can learn from her journey? What stands out the most to you?
I think it's the power of just embracing who you are. Like, really owning your authentic self. Rosie has never tried to fit in.
Yeah.
She's never tried to, be what other people expected her to be. She's always just been Rosie, flaws and all. And I think that's a big part of why she's so relatable and inspiring.
Yeah. It's a good reminder that we don't have to be perfect to make a difference.
Yeah, that's...
In fact, it's kind of the opposite. Our imperfections and our, unique experiences and our passions, that's what makes us who we are.
Yeah.
And it's what lets us connect with other people.
Well, it's been great diving into Rosie O'Donnell's world with you today. I feel like I have a whole new appreciation for her.
Thank you.
Talent and, her resilience and her commitment to making the world a better place.
Me too. Me too. It's been a really fascinating journey, and I think it's safe to say that Rosie's story is nowhere near finished.
Yeah, she's going to keep on going, isn't she?
I think so. I think she's going to keep surprising us and challenging us and inspiring us for a long time to come.
I hope so.
Yeah, me too. So to all of our listeners out there, I definitely encourage you to check out some more of Rosie O'Donnell's work if you haven't already. Her stand-up, her movies, her talk show. There's a ton of great stuff out there to enjoy.
And as you're checking that out, maybe take some time to think about your own journey.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
Like, how can you embrace your authentic self and use your own unique talents and experiences to maybe, make a positive impact on the world? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
Those are some really great questions to think about. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We'll see you next time for another insightful exploration of someone making waves and, leaving their mark on the world. Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those conversations going.